in the end, there is a non-human connection to this global cult. Ultimately, it's controlled by a non-human force. This cult is a network manipulating human society on behalf of a non-human force operating overwhelmingly outside the frequency band that humans can see, which is tiny, 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 visible light. But whether this force is in this form or that form, whether it's the reptilians or the greys or whatever, in the end, the way it behaves, the way anyone behaves, human, non-human, whatever, comes down to their state of consciousness. And so as I've gone deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole, and I've gone through the human level of the network, down through the non-human level, you keep going. It comes down in the end to consciousness, states of consciousness. And so when I look around the world and the different cultures and the different religions and the non-religious cultures and so on, you see very common themes of a force manipulating humanity from a very negative, you might call evil, which I call the absence of love, perspective, and another force, very different, pushing the other way. By its very nature, it's a very low vibrational state of perception and awareness, thus it's a very low frequency. And it's a very dense frequency. And to control humans and to attach human awareness, the body-mind level of awareness, to itself, so it becomes the mission control of people once that attachment takes place, you've got to pull as many human beings as possible, as many body minds, into that same frequency. And not only does that allow you to attach to them and therefore become their source of perception, awareness, thought, everything, emotion, it also means you can feed off them. And you know, in the Matrix movie, when Morpheus held the battery up and said the machines have turned humans into one of these, it told a very profound truth, because one of the very great common themes of this force is that it feeds off low vibrational human energy, particularly emotion, like fear and anxiety, depression, resentment, hatred, all these low vibrational emotions. It feeds off. We become an energy source for it, to empower it. Once it's attached to you, you become a vehicle for it. So you start acting like it. You start thinking like it, and then you become what you mentioned earlier. You become the psychopaths. You become the people with no compassion, no empathy. Is a very clear division and a very clear public expression of those who are awakened enough to think for themselves and those who are not. If you look at the way society breaks down, it's always broken down like this, but it's more obvious now because of what's been going on. You've got a very large number of people who do what authority tells them without question because authority's told them. There is no process of processing information and processing what authority tells you to see if it makes sense. There's none of that. You just believe it and do it. Then you've got another group that actually can see it, or some levels of it, and doesn't want to do what authority tells them. But they do it anyway because they're frightened of not doing it. Now, they're the two sections of society that have allowed every tyranny in history to be imposed. Because tyrants, there's never enough of them. The population has to obey the tyrants for the tyrants to rule. And then you've got this other area of society which is getting bigger, and the more people wake up to the fact that this is a gigantic scam and they're being lied to. And they're the ones that not only can see what's going on, at least levels of it, they won't cooperate with what's going on because their self-respect won't allow them to. And they're the ones, that's the section of society that's brought an end to every tyranny in history. Because their self-respect says, no, I'm not going to do what you tell me. So no, I'm not doing it. These are very clear expressions of consciousness, where people are at in terms of consciousness, where people are at in terms of perception. And the only people that are going to bring this to an end are those that are in the third group. And we hope that more from the second group, those that can see that it's not right, but are frightened to do anything or not obey, more and more of them come across. But it's those with massive responsibility on those people. Awakening is a gift, but it comes with great responsibility because, I mean, those that just obey authority without question, they're not going to change it, they're not going to change anything. So this is a time when those who do have an awakening consciousness, because none of us are awake in terms of fully awake. I mean, this is the situation we're in, or it is pushing us against awakening all the time. So we are awakening and learning and feeling and getting more and more insight. But it's those people that the responsibility lies upon to bring this to us. I look around today, we're talking about the awakening, and it's not like that anymore. I mean, my life has gone from trying everything I can to circulate this information to anyone who wants to listen, which weren't many, to the challenge in my life now is coping with the interest. It's, you know, I work 7 days a week, every week. I mean, there's no breaks because the interest is so great, and I want to use it to get this information circulating. So there is an awakening, and I'll tell you something else. And this is from my own experience as well, is that people now in bigger numbers than ever, far bigger numbers than ever, are opening their minds to the possibilities of even some of the big far out stuff I came out with years ago about the non-human element to this. Because two things. One, they are looking at it and they're saying, well, if someone had told me in January 2020 that the world would be like this at the end of 2021 into 2022, I'd have laughed at them. I'd have said, that's ridiculous. That will never happen. That could never happen. We'd never stand for it. Yeah, if only. But they've seen it happen. And what it's done, it's reduced the resistance to the sense of the possible. This is really important. If you want to hold people in servitude, perceptual servitude, then squeeze their sense of the possible. Because if you can do that, when people come along and say, this is what's going on and this is how they're doing it, if those things are outside of your programmed sense of the possible, you're going to wave them away.